Picture this. It is a Friday evening and you have just bought 2 tickets to see a band you have loved since the early 70s or 80s. You are genuinely excited. Maybe you got a babysitter for the grandkids, maybe you drove an hour and a half to get there, maybe you spent more than you really should have on those seats. The lights go down, the crowd roars, and then the frontman opens his mouth and something is just off. The voice is thin where it used to be massive. The energy is shuffling where it used to be electric. And instead of remembering why you loved this band, you sit there quietly wondering whether you just paid $200 to watch someone struggle. I have been there, and I will tell you honestly, it is one of the saddest things in music. Not because these artists are old, age is not the problem. The problem is that nobody around these men seems willing to say the simple, honest thing, that the road is long and the body is real, and there is no shame in knowing when to stop. So today I want to talk about 13 frontmen who by most fair accounts have reached that point. I'm not saying this to be cruel, I am saying it because I think fans deserve honesty. And I think some of these artists deserve better than to be remembered for their worst recent nights on stage rather than their greatest ones. By the end of this video, you will have a clear-eyed look at each of them and why the conversation matters. There is a free companion piece linked in the description if you want to go deeper. I will not mention it again. Number 1 is Ozzy Osbourne. I will start here because his situation is the most serious and also the most human. Ozzy has been open about his battle with Parkinson's disease, and he has had multiple spinal surgeries over the last several years. He has postponed and cancelled tours repeatedly because his body simply will not cooperate. The fans love him, and he clearly loves performing. But watching video from some of his more recent attempts, you can see the physical cost on his face. The voice still has moments of real power, but the man can barely stand without difficulty. There is genuine courage in wanting to keep going. There is also a time when courage looks a lot like stubbornness. Number 2 is Vince Neil of Motley Crue. Vince is probably the most talked about case among fans of hard rock and heavy metal. His vocal performances in recent years have been widely criticized, and I am not going to sugarcoat it. At many shows, the audience has been louder than he was. Footage circulates online that is genuinely painful to watch for anyone who remembers what that voice sounded like in the 80s. The band clearly still draws a crowd, but at this point the show runs largely on nostalgia and production value, not on what Vince is delivering at the microphone. Number 3 is Steven Tyler. Aerosmith announced what they called a farewell tour, and then Steven suffered a vocal cord injury that shelved the whole thing. He has had documented struggles with both his health and his voice for years. When Aerosmith is firing on all cylinders, they are one of the greatest rock bands that ever existed.
Watch you smile while you are sleeping, while you're far away and dreaming.
But Steven's voice has been the weak link for quite a while now, and the farewell tour situation brought all of that into sharp relief. Some things end better when they end on purpose and on your own terms. Number 4 is Axl Rose. Guns N' Roses still plays massive shows, and Axl is still capable of surprising moments. But anyone who followed his voice closely during the classic era knows that the upper register he built his whole identity around is largely gone. He has adapted his approach, dropping keys and changing phrasing, which shows real professionalism. But there is a difference between adapting and thriving, and I think longtime fans can hear that difference plainly. Number 5 is Roger Daltrey of The Who. Roger has been honest in interviews about the fact that his voice is not what it was, and he has dealt with hearing damage over the decades that has made performing more difficult. The Who put on a spectacular touring production with a full orchestra in recent years, which is smart staging. But when you go back and listen to Live at Leeds or Who's Next, and then you listen to recent recordings, the gap is significant. Roger deserves credit for honesty. He also deserves a graceful exit. Number 6 is Brian Wilson.
Music all a costly vow, the music all is lost for now.
This one is perhaps the most delicate on the list because Brian's health challenges go beyond voice or stamina. He has dealt with serious mental health struggles his entire adult life, and in more recent years, those close to him have raised public concerns about his cognitive health.
Make you so sure about it, and God only knows what I'd be.
His tours with former Beach Boys bandmates and later with a solo band have been uneven, to say the least. At his best, he is still magical, but there have been performances where the kindest thing you can say is that he needed to be somewhere quieter and safer. Number 7 is David Lee Roth. Diamond Dave built his entire brand on being the most physically outrageous frontman in rock. High kicks, gymnastics, karate moves, pure spectacle. That style of performing is punishing on a body even at 25. In his late 60s and into his 70s, the gap between the legend and the reality became very hard to watch. He announced a retirement from performing, which I personally think was the right call and took real self-awareness. The legacy is better for it. Number 8 is Rod Stewart.
Here's the star in the sky, don't mean nothing to you.
Now, Rod is a trickier case because the man genuinely still has a lot of his voice. He can still belt it out on a good night in a way that surprises people. But the schedule he keeps, constantly touring, constantly performing at nearly 80 years old, raises real questions about sustainability.
You grow to be proud, dignified and true.
He is also in an era where one bad night on a big stage can define a whole leg of a tour. I admire the drive. I just wonder if slowing down would let him finish stronger.
Place, riding on the cover of a helicopter blade.
Number 9 is Iggy Pop. Nobody on this list has given more physical punishment to themselves on a stage than Iggy. He was throwing himself into crowds and cutting himself with broken glass when most of these other men were still in high school. He is now in his late 70s and still performs with extraordinary intensity for his age.
Through the sitters' backsides, I see the stars come out of the sky.
But watching it can feel genuinely anxious-making. You find yourself hoping nothing goes wrong more than you find yourself enjoying the music. Number 10 is Alice Cooper. Alice has kept his touring schedule remarkably consistent, and he still delivers a theatrical show. But the voice has aged considerably, and the theatrical elements now carry more weight than the singing does. Alice is smart enough to know that the show is the thing, and he has leaned into that. Still, there is a version of this story where he wraps up on a high note and the legacy stays cleaner. Number 11 is Paul McCartney. I say this with the deepest respect because Paul is one of the greatest songwriters who ever lived, full stop. But he is in his 80s now, and his voice shows it. He still draws enormous crowds, and his catalogue is so rich that even a diminished performance carries weight. But I have watched recent footage, and the strain is audible on several of the high notes that once came so easily. The willingness is there. The voice is not always following. Number 12 is Mick Jagger. The Rolling Stones are a force of nature, and Mick's energy at his age is genuinely remarkable. But the Stones recently lost Charlie Watts, and the losses around them are adding up. Mick is in his 80s. At some point, even the most extraordinary engine starts to wear. I think the question for the Stones is no longer whether they can still do it, but whether they should keep doing it indefinitely, and who that is really for. Number 13 is Keith Richards. I know, Keith Richards outliving everyone is practically a running joke at this point, but those guitar hands have slowed, and performances in recent years have had rough patches that would have been unthinkable in an earlier era. Keith is beloved. He is also a human being with decades of road behind him. The music he helped create will never age. He does not have to prove anything to anyone. If you have been watching along and finding yourself nodding, I want to invite you to join our community here on the channel. We talk about music, memory, and the artists who shaped our lives. Subscribe if you have not already, and I genuinely try to answer questions in the comments. So what is the takeaway from all of this? I think it is simply this: we love these men because of what they gave us. Decades of music that got us through hard times, that made us feel something real. And the kindest thing fans can do is hold that legacy with care, which sometimes means being honest when the current version is not serving the memory. There is no embarrassment in stopping, there is only the question of timing. This week, go back and listen to the peak album from one of the artists I mentioned today. Remind yourself what the original Fire sounded like. That is the version worth protecting. I would love to know which of these artists means the most to you personally. Leave a comment and tell me which frontman you saw at their absolute best and what that night felt like. Next time we are looking at legendary bands that quietly broke up and almost nobody noticed. Until then, take care of yourself and keep listening to what you love.